Fall means one thing to me, pulling out every doily and scrap of lace I own. Today, 5 Grandmacore fall DIYs, all lace, all cozy. Let's make something pretty. Hey y'all, I'm Kelley. Welcome to Cozy Living, where we're turning our home into a warm little haven, one project and one cozy corner at a time. Let's get into it. There's something about fall that makes me want to slow down and get out all the lace and doilies. That soft Grandmacore feel just says autumn to me. Today, I'm sharing 5 fall DIYs using vintage doilies and lace to bring that cozy, old soul charm into your home. Let's get into it. This first one is almost entirely Dollar Tree finds, which I love. I grabbed one of their wire pumpkin wreath frames as the base, then 3 fabric pieces. Not something I usually reach for, but these 3 together were just too pretty to pass up. And of course, I couldn't leave without grabbing florals. I ended up with way more bunches than I needed. I only used 2 or 3, but hey, no regrets. Next, I took the fabric and ripped it into strips, about 5 1.5-inch strips of each pattern. There's something so satisfying about the rip instead of cutting. It gives the edges that soft, frayed look that fits right into the Grandmacore vibe. Now it's time to start weaving the fabric strips into the frame. I glued the strip at the edge, then wove it up and down through the wires. For the next strip, I made sure to go under wherever I'd gone over on the last one, so it builds that basket weave look. The edges weren't looking great at this point, but I wasn't worried. I figured I'd deal with that once everything was woven in. That's honestly one of my favorite parts about crafting. You figure it out as you go. A few sections of the fabric wanted to slide around once they were woven in, so I went back and glued those spots down to the wire frame, just enough to tack them in place and keep everything from shifting. Now for those edges, I used this lace trim I found on Amazon, which I'll link for you below. I took it and wrapped the stem first, then worked my way all the way around the pumpkin, gluing along the middle of the lace trim as I went. Once that was in place, I went back and tacked down the edges with hot glue to finish everything off. I took a couple of leaves and a flower and glued them to the top, right by the stem. Last step for this one, the bow. I used some leftover strips of fabric along with lace and twine. Honestly, bows aren't really my thing, so I keep it simple. I just layer the strips down and tie twine around the middle to cinch in the middle. I actually love the messy, imperfect look it gives. It fits the whole vibe way better than a perfect bow would anyway. And there it is, this adorable Dollar Tree pumpkin, all decked out in lace, fabric, and florals, proof that you don't need a big budget to get that cozy Grandmacore fall look. This next DIY came from a vision I had after finding some inspiration on Pinterest. I ended up grabbing a paper pumpkin from Hobby Lobby. I really wanted to find one at Dollar Tree, but I could never track one down. Once I saw the shape on this one though, I was sold. I used a lace ribbon I actually bought years ago from Hobby Lobby. It's been sitting in my stash forever, just waiting for the right project. I cut it down into 7 strips, one for each bump on the pumpkin. At this point, I thought I needed to do something about the pumpkin's color, so I grabbed some gold wax and covered the whole thing. It turned out really pretty, but spoiler alert, I later realized it was completely pointless except for the stem since it ended up covered anyway. Lesson learned, but hey, it was a fun step while it lasted. Now it was time to put on the lace ribbon. At the top, I folded it and pinched it in to make it smaller, then glued it down. Originally, I just laid it flat at the bottom, but I ended up going back and doing that same pinch technique down there too. It gave the ribbon the shape I needed to get that rounded bubble look like a real pumpkin. Next, my plan was to braid some yarn and use that to cover the seams, but once I made it, I just wasn't loving the look, so I pivoted again. I dug through my stash and found this really old piece of fabric. I'll have to double check with my mom, but I'm pretty sure this is fabric she used to make curtains about 20 years ago. And yes, I've kept this tiny scrap that long. You just never know when a little piece like that is gonna come in handy. I cut the fabric into 1-inch strips and glued them right over the seams to cover them up. For the top, I had this doily I wanted to use. I just cut a small hole in the center so the stem could poke through. It ended up covering all the seams on top and added such a pretty detail. I grabbed a big pack of doilies off Amazon. I'll leave that link below for you too. And don't worry, no old doilies were harmed in the making of this video. The inspiration photo I found had florals on top, and that was actually my original plan too. But once I saw that doily, it was just too pretty to cover up. So I went back to my scrap fabric and cut out a few leaves instead. The leaves were just laying too flat, so I needed a way to make them stand up. I grabbed a floral stick with wire in it, pulled the wire out, cut it down to size, and glued it to the bottom of each leaf so they'd stand up off the pumpkin. This one turned out so pretty. I'm actually really glad the braided yarn didn't work out because this fabric ended up being exactly what it needed. This next one was more of a challenge. My daughter-in-law's family was having a yard sale, and when I went by at the end of the day, I spotted these 2 paper file holders. I love the color and the shape, and instantly I could picture them as picture frames, hung vertically instead of laying flat the way they were meant to be used. For this one, I picked up some foam pumpkins from Hobby Lobby. I took the foam pumpkins from Hobby Lobby and worked on getting that stacked pumpkin look. I used a knife to cut them in half, using a larger one for the bottom and smaller ones stacked on top. Then I had to decide what to put behind them. I was torn between a pretty floral orange fabric and a black and white plaid. I ended up going with the floral. I cut it down to size and tacked it in place with hot glue, just enough that I could remove it later if I ever needed to. I didn't technically have to, but I felt like the cut edges needed something to finish them off. I had some lace I'd gotten from Amazon, but I didn't have enough of one pattern to do both pumpkins the same way, so I decided to use two different lace patterns instead. I cut those down and glued them in along the edges. Next, I laid out the pumpkin halves and glued them down, leaving a small space between each one and making sure everything stayed centered. For the top, I glued back on one of the pumpkin stems, one I'd actually cut off earlier when I was cutting the pumpkins in half. Then I added moss, gluing it in between each pumpkin to fill in those gaps. I also had some raffia bows with buttons on them. These came from Dollar Tree several years ago. I added those right over the moss on each pumpkin. Then I had some wired berries, also from Dollar Tree, that I cut down and tucked in. And I also used some tiny pine cones I had on hand for a little extra texture. To finish it off, I added a little gold rub and buff over the white pumpkins just to tone down that stark white a touch. These turned out so cute. I actually considered adding a bigger bow, but I felt like it already had enough going on. Let me know in the comments, would you have added anything else? And be honest, do you see the snowmen too? For this next one, I used those doilies I ordered from Amazon to make stiffened lace ghosts. I took matte Mod Podge and mixed it 50-50 with water, then dipped the doily into the mixture and wrung out most of the excess. I had some styrofoam balls that I set on a candlestick to hold the doily's shape while it dried. I found some super small black buttons in my stash and used a bit of bronze rub and buff to give them a little shimmer. Then I just glued them on. and that's it. These turned out super cute and were so easy to make. With all the doilies that came in that pack of 11, you could make yourself a whole ghost army. For this last one, I found some Pinterest inspiration and thought, I can make this. So I headed to Amazon to find doilies. I can never find any at my thrift stores. And the price on these was honestly thrift store worthy. It even came with the oval-shaped doily I needed. For the frame, I had this old one I'd thrifted a while back just laying around. I pulled the glass out. I love all the detail on this frame. And with the glass gone, it worked perfectly like a little shadow box. I had this fleece plaid fabric on hand, so I cut it down to size and glued it onto the back of the frame. Now, a few days before this, I had already dyed my doilies, but I lost that footage, so I'll just walk you through what I did. I dyed the big one orange using RIT dye, and I stained the medium one with coffee. While they were drying, I accidentally touched the coffee one against the orange one, and it left a few little spots. I wasn't thrilled at first, but the more I looked at it, the more I actually loved it. It just gave it that aged vintage look. Once they were dry, I glued the doilies down onto the fabric. I put the big oval one in the back first, then layered the two smaller ones on top, just tacking everything down with hot glue so if I ever wanted to remove them later, it wouldn't ruin the doilies. Now I needed stems, so I grabbed Mod Podge again and mixed it 50-50 with water, just like with the ghosts. I took some craft paper, cut it into squares, crinkled it up, then dipped it into the mixture and formed each piece into little stem shapes. Once those dried, I glued them onto each doily pumpkin. I felt like it was still missing something, so I grabbed my gold wax and rubbed it onto the stems to give them a little shimmer. And honestly, once I started, I didn't stop there. I jumped right over to the frame itself and used it to bring out all that detail carved into the wood. I absolutely love how this turned out. This has been by far my favorite project ever. If you have some old doilies tucked away that you've been wanting to display, this could be the perfect way to do it. That wraps up today's Grandmacore Fall DIYs. If you want to grab any of the supplies I used, check out my Amazon storefront. I've linked everything below, and I'd love to know which one of these was your favorite. Let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.